Another active example, a year and something ago, a gangster in Hanover Park shot on a Metro Police officer. Metro Police were able to arrest the person, and SAPS then released that person almost immediately. It incensed the city and the Metro Police because you almost killed some of our staff. You walked right out in front of the vehicle and shot through the front windscreen at our offices. We made arrests, SAPS let that person go. They then claimed that we hadn't made a statement. We proved that was false. We gave copies of the statement. We tried to do a watching brief. Briefly for a while, our watching brief officials actually had reasonably fair access to police stations to be able to follow up and track these cases with the investigative officers. And for a little while, one of the officials that headed that watching brief system briefly had access to that system until one of these very politicized figures in SAPS found out about it and curtailed that access. So at certain points of the meeting, when certain people have their way, our staff are chased out of the room when the crime stats are shared. So we're expected as a partner to engage in joint operations and integrated operations, but we're not allowed to know what the current crime stats are. We have to wait with the rest of the public to find those stats out 18 months after they are relevant. When you have conversation, what you find is closed arms and the words role clarification. You do what you must do, we do what we must do. Now that would be fine if SAPS were doing its job to the point where we didn't have a 2% conviction for gang violence, and gang violence was murderers and gangsters were marauding our city. Everything is about pulling things closer to the chest of national government because national government suffers from the centralization psychosis that is just manifest in everything they do. In your so-called district model, where national cabinet ministers are rolled out to various parts of the country, where they will micromanage local government in that area.
Yes,
is a
this is the Chinese People's Council model that they're implementing.
Correct, sir. And it's also why the response to the coronavirus pandemic was headed up by a paralegal or pseudo-legal or quasi-legal or illegal structure within national government, the so-called COVID Command Council. So even the language is following suit. And these are some very unhealthy trends and tendencies that national government and the ANC are developing. And unfortunately, they continuously move in the wrong direction. With everybody, there's good and bad people in the organization. As I said, there are many good people in SAP desperately trying to rescue the situation and putting their lives on the line, losing their lives, losing the lives of their family, and suffering great personal torment. What happened to Kenya is a case in point. But unfortunately, there are also a lot of people who, in an increasingly larger pool of politically deployed people, so increasingly we're seeing our courts compromised. We're seeing the National Prosecuting Authority compromised. We're seeing crime intelligence compromised. And you don't have to believe my word for this. As a politician, I'm sure you'll be cynical. Go online, go to DuckDuckGo, don't use Google, and search search on any search engine for crime intelligence and see the top 10 news reports. That needs much more investigation. If those things were happening in other countries, you'd have a massive commission of inquiry and heads would roll. Sadly, that is not happening here. So within the ANC, there has over time been numerous allegations and instances of where people linked either to senior decision makers, the family of Jacob Zuma, notable representatives in the municipal legislature and National Assembly linked to the ANC have been linked to organized crime syndicates and organized crime figures. And I mean, when Nafis Modak shows up in court, he sits there with an ANC jacket on, because you don't understand how deep and how far that capture goes. I mean, you have an example where just this last week, Judge Desai, Shlope and Desai enjoy taking potshots at the city, and both are imperiled for a whole variety of reasons. But Desai this week was depicted in a campaign committee meeting for the Ward 115 by-election, where he sat with the ANC committee. And
the most irksome aspect of this for me, listening to this, is that what you said, the particular pattern of capture that you've highlighted is one that comes from the cadre deployment system, which suggests to me that it's from extremely high up, that in the ANC's national hierarchy, that they're intervening to protect these gangsters.
What is happening there is the sustained war between people who understand what the job of a policeman is and somebody whose credentials are essentially political and has been deployed. That war is there for everybody to see. There has been a long-standing spate of conflicts with various provincial commissioners that has marred and imperiled the efficacy of the National Police Service in this province.